welcome again to The Bridge, a ministry of the Church of God, Seventh Day British Conference. My name is Avril Hargreaves and I have my co-host with me today, Dion Winter. Again this week I have the same question for you as last week. Today, would you believe in him if God gave you a miracle or a great supernatural breakthrough for an issue you're going through? Last week we heard Anika's story. This week, we're going to hear from one of our brothers in the church, Dwayne Cunningham, whose life-changing encounter with God has changed his life forever. Romans 8:28, which says, "All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose."
Welcome, Dwayne. Thank you so much for joining us today to share your testimony with us. To start off, where does your story begin? Tell us about the environment you grew up in.
My childhood began up in the hills of St. Ann, Jamaica, West Indies. That's where I was born, and a small village, and quite somber environment, quite nice, humble. Everybody knew everyone, and growing up was quite a nice part of my upbringing. We had loads of kids, loads of elders. And I was just hung around them a lot of times, listening to their stories and stuff like that.
Were your family part of a church and that sort of thing?
My father's side was in the church. My grandmother was a pivotal part of her family. Mm-hmm. She grew up in the church, and she would make sure we go to church every Sunday. So going in the church, is something that we'd have to turn up. And the church was what we had in the community. We had a football field, and the church was everything else. 5 days a week we'd be at the church, so every day everything, there was something going on in the evening, so all of us would have to take part as kids growing up.
God, what did God mean to you at that point?
I was about 7 years old. We had a play at the time, and I was asked to recite a particular line from a scripture of the Bible, and it was my turn to say it, to quote my scripture. And I didn't do very well. So after that, for me, what I did was I said to myself that I won't be, as soon as I finish my bit, once I get off the stage, I won't be coming back. And I would rather stay in the congregation than coming up on the rostrum anymore. And for me, what happened was, the minute I said that to myself, then a voice said to me, "So listen, you're coming back." And for that, ever since, I was kind of denying my role and my responsibilities.
How did that change? So going into your teenager, so you were 7,
yeah,
and then you become a teenager and then into adulthood. So how has that impression of God developed over that time?
What I would say is, as a teenager growing up, we always knew that there's something there. So when I'm a low time, I'll talk to God and go into the church. So there's something there, but the belief wasn't quite full. Whenever I'm low, we'd always kind of just walk and talk to ourselves, and we just saying God is answering our prayers, and we just talk to Him when we're there. But as a teenager, what I can just bring back 2 things to mind that really kind of connect me with God, because I remember I was playing football, and I'm spending a lot of my time playing football. So when I end of year 10, I wanted to change high school, and one of the requirements was from an adult to take me to the school and make an application. And I single-handedly went to a school and talked to God, prayed first, and I got myself transferred into a school. And a funny story about that was when I went to the school and they said, "Where are your parents?" I said, "Oh, my grandmother is she's busy and my mother is not available," but they asked me to come. I went along, and I remember just after the last day of the transfer, the vice principal said to me, "Mr. Cunningham, there's no space for you. We already have more than what we required, which was 30, and we had 31 in the class." So what I did, as soon as I was walking out, funny enough, I bumped into the pastor of our church. His wife was a teacher at the school. And he says, "Oh, Cunningham, what are you doing here?" And I turned around and said to her, and the principal just said to her, "Oh, do you know him?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, he's one of the elders of the church, grandson." And she says, "Okay, the fact that you know him then, I'm going to take a chance with him." And she just pulled me back into the office and gave me the opportunity to stay. And I said, "You know what? That could have been God who just came to my rescue at the right time."
Who or what helped you then, as you got to understand who Jesus is?
My brother, I think my brother had got a girl pregnant when she was quite young and he was quite young. And I remember I was saying to myself, I wonder if I can just ask God to help me to help my family. And I went out, I remember a pear tree at the time, and I stood there just underneath the pear tree. And I prayed to God, and I said, Lord, I'm asking for an opportunity where I can help my family. And it's just funny enough, like within a short period of time, an aunt of mine just turned up and said, you know what, one of your uncle wants to give you an opportunity to travel. And I said to myself, that's when I said, you know what, that again is another confirmation to let me know that God is real and is present in my life.
So did you give your life to him at that point?
No, I didn't. Because, you know, sometimes God will do a lot of things for us. But we're still thinking, I think the flesh would always, you know, you tend to forget, or you tend to think, you know, a part of it is just you.
Or it's
So
due
this,
to
yes,
you.
it's
Yeah.
due to me. So we tend to kind of easily forget and just think, you know what, we just our own understanding or just things just working in our favor.
You mentioned about that opportunity to travel abroad and then to help your family.
Yeah.
Just expand on that a little. Where did you go?
Okay, so as a teenager, when I was a teenager, I think about 17 or 18 years old, I got the opportunity to travel to England through one of my uncles. So I came to this country as a young boy, and I was living in Birmingham at the time. Quite nice, and I would still visit the church occasionally because I think that was something that was embedded in me. So I would go like every now and then on a Sunday, and most of the time it would be Christmas or New Year. So I'll just visit on those occasions, but just, you know, just that's something that's instilled in me from my roots. But I wasn't a member, and I would still be out there just trying to work and, you know, just find myself, my feet as a young person in the UK.
So what happened next in your life then that validated or discredited this sort of on-off relationship that you had with God? What happened to make it a lot clearer?
I took a holiday trip to Egypt. We had a tour guide, and a lot of some of the few locations were pointed out to us, and biblical locations as well. And I was saying to myself, hang on a minute, there's place that's been what we heard about when I was young in the Bible, and these places do exist. Because growing up before, I just thought that, you know what, this Bible and this book, there's nowhere in Jamaica that could really relate to it. And then when I came back from that holiday, I said to myself, so I had a phone call from a sister, and she said about the Bible and making reference to the holiday. And I said, oh my God, how would she just make reference to where we've been and point out landmarks and just saying what God said about the Bible and pertaining to Egypt and stuff like that? And I said, for the first time, I said to myself, I wonder if this book and this man that people keep talking about is actually real. Because even though God was doing stuff for me over all these years, in my head, I still didn't have any proof to kind of say this is the concrete proof that God is real.
So, at what point then did you come to accept?
The situation happened again when so after I came back from the holiday, Sister Anika, she fell in the coma, and I remember sitting in the hospital waiting room, and it was intensive care, really difficult time. And while I sat there, I just remember just like my world stopped, and I said to myself, if at least she had given her life to the Lord already, and I said to myself, if she dies, at least she can die in saying, you know what, the Lord, she had made that decision to follow Christ. And I looked around me, and everybody was going about their business as normal, but it's like nobody could really relate to what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's that time I had a feeling like just something is missing. I walked into church, and there's something different. I walked into church, and there's a feeling of it wasn't a normal day, because normally from before, what I would do, I would normally go to church, and it was custom for me to, as soon as the pastor was about to pray or call for prayer, and I would just sneak out and I'll be off. When I walked back to my car, I said to myself, I need to make my commitment with God. So I sat in my car that afternoon, and I prayed a sincere prayer. I couldn't do it in front of no one else. I prayed to myself and said, Lord, I am ready to serve you. And I think the minute I prayed that prayer, I think my world changed after that. And instead of giving my life to Christ, I think I went down the wrong path from that day onwards.
What was that path?
About the next week, I was off to prison. Because one of the reasons was I was living a life of crime. And a lot of time when I was asked to say, like, why you're not giving your life to the Lord, it's my sins that was really pulling me away from Christ. And when I really analyze it and look at it, I believe that when I prayed that prayer, I think from then onwards, the fact that I was sincere, I think the enemy kind of look at it at that time and so on and say, okay, that's when he's going to come and put me under attack. Virgin, I got locked up from there onwards, and I went to prison for 2 years, 9 months. And Virgin, that was a difficult time. It was a difficult time for me, for my family. They had gone through, and a lot of people had love and respect for me, so they had to go through it themselves. So that was quite hard. Family back home, people here, and it was tough. The kids had to go through it too. And it's a place that you wouldn't want to wish it on no one else.
So while you were in prison, then you've always had this on and off relationship with God. Let's say what role did God play then while you were in prison?
When I got locked up, now I'm trying to cope. So I was kind of looking for my coping mechanism and say, how can I get this out? So I was more focusing on how long am I going to get, how am I going to get through this, but I would still go to my church on a Saturday and a Sunday if I can, and then I work my way up. When I had the last 9 months left, that's when the Lord really started to work in my life, and I really analyzed and realized that a lot of my battles is not for me to fight, it's to trust in God and let Him fight my battles for me.
What was life like in prison, like day to day, the people that you were meeting, the system, was there support, family, what was it like?
Prison was really difficult, because to start off with, it was just a hard, I would go to my bed, probably say 8 o'clock at night, and then I would think I had a full night's sleep, and it would only be I'll wake up back at 10 o'clock in the night, and then I'll stay up all night, so that was really difficult to adjust, because I'm a person who like to keep myself active, and keep myself busy, and there most of the time you'll be doing anything, so for me that was hard to just be sitting down, not doing anything, and mentally it was a difficult time. Not seeing my kids, not be able to see my family, it was hard for me to cope with in that regards. But a day-to-day running I would find myself doing courses or doing different jobs. The wages was nothing, but I would occupy my time in the best positive way I could, by just talking to people, engaging in courses and stuff like that to keep myself busy. But the fact that we weren't doing much all day was really hard for me, and the evenings be long. Summer could be really hot in a cell, and it's so hot, and you're not getting any fresh air and stuff like that. It was just like a difficult time. Food, I would say just very average, basic food, which a lot of people would be accustomed with, but that's prison for you. But you kind of learn to adjust with what you have, and you just cope, find different coping mechanisms.
You mentioned, Dwayne, about the fact that obviously with your family it was difficult and everything, but you also mentioned previously that you had you still didn't have a relationship with God, but you went to church on the Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
In between that, did you read your Bible? Did you seek God? Or was it just Saturday, Sunday church, and then you went back to your own thing again before the last 9 months? Did you seek Him? Did you read? Did you
That's a good question. I was reading my Bible, but I felt I was reading it for the wrong reason, because I was still in that battle mood where I'm trying to see how can I get out of this situation that I was in. So I was reading it, but I wasn't really taking it all in. I was just finding something to cope. So I was reading my Bible, but I could not really comprehend it that well, and I was just quoting a couple of Psalms just to get me by then. So I would go to church the same way I was going on the outside. I would sit there and worship. I would even fast at times, but because other people would say they're fasting for me, I said it's my place to kind of fast. But I still didn't understand what I was really doing then. It was just coping at the time, yes.
So you've told us that you were struggling, you were doing the best that you could to get through mentally. There was those things going on. But what about your family? What about people outside? Do you know how it was affecting them?
It affected them quite bad. I think a lot of my family had gone through so much, because a lot of people knew me in the community, so it was difficult for them to take all of that in.
In the community in England, or the community in Jamaica? Or?
Mainly England, but still a lot of people in the community in Jamaica love me and respect me also, so it was difficult for them, but mainly in the community in Gloucester, where I was in the UK. So for that, it was quite hard, and a lot of people kind of said, you know what, they have respected me as a young man in the community, so that was difficult for them to kind of say that, you know what, I've dropped the ball and I've let them down in such a way. And for my family, it was difficult. My kids had to go through it, my partner had to go through it, my family had to go through it. It was difficult for them to cope through a day-to-day. So it's like a sentence that I was serving and they were serving it too.
When did you actually say, this is it, I'm going to get baptized at the next opportunity? Or
I came while I was locked up in jail. So I was in an open prison, and I reached a stage when I said I've tried everything that I can, and I just realized that, you know what, it's not me. Everything that I tried has failed. And there's something, I'm just thinking, I'm not created to fight all these battles. It has to be somebody greater than me who was a creator. And I remember when I asked for another Bible, because I had one, and I asked for another Bible, and somebody gave me a Bible, and I started to read more now. My mind was clear. I could read now. I had no battles to fight. The court case was already finished. I was in the last, probably say 45 months left for me to come out. And I was working, and when I took my Bible and I started to read it now, and the Bible started, when I started to ignite the word, is that the word was coming to me. And that's when I really kind of start going through the Old Testament and then see that the kind of people that God had used, and I realized that people that have gone through hardship themselves, that really kind of resonate with me. And I remember I went to my bed one night, and when I wake up that morning, I remember I wrote down, and it's like I made a contract with God to say, I'm going to serve you when I leave here, and I want to be a part of the church. And what I did, I wrote it down, put the time, the date, where I was, and I wrote it in my Bible, and I even forgot about it. So I closed it in my Bible. When I got out, I totally forgot about that. I even wrote that down. So just in the community again. So that time I wrote that and put that down. So I think that will take me back till probably I would say about November 2021. At the time when I decided, I took it to myself to say, look, I'm going to make a declaration with you, God, to serve you when I get out of this place. And I even started from there inside.
So what happened when you got out?
Yeah. So when I got out, I totally forgot about what I wrote down. So that was one of the situations for me where I wrote that in my Bible, took the Bible home, got out, back into normality, and it's a struggle to get myself going. And I was visiting church, but my mind was in the place where it should be. So I got out and just want to hit the ground running again. And a part of me was saying that, you need to take it slow. I wasn't ready. And I remember I just felt heavy. I couldn't feel myself, and I was just nervous, walking around with fear. I just had fear because I think God was using me from a long time, from my youth, and I always get a call, but I just didn't know what it was. And every time I'd go to church, I'll still leave, and I still come back now, and I'm thinking, you know what, I need to go, but that fear was always there with me. And I remember I said to myself, no, I don't want to have nothing from prison. I want to make sure whatever I had from prison, I'll get rid of them. And I put my Bibles together, 2 Bibles I had now, and a few more bits and pieces. And I said, you know what, I need to have a fresh start. Let me take these Bibles up my house. I didn't tell anyone, so I took them out the house, walked up to a lay-by, and I just put them in the lay-by. And I walked into town, went about my daily routine. And every time I'm walking past this particular place, I have to stop. And it's like something saying I can't go past. I was there for like probably 10, 15 minutes, cannot move past a particular point. And after a few days, every time I go there, it's the same thing. I said to myself, there's something ain't right. So I stopped, looked back at the spot where I put my Bible down. I went back, the 2 Bibles were still there. And I said, that it can only be God. So I went back to church, I took the Bibles up, and I was giving a sister a lift. And she said, what are you doing at these Bibles? I said, you know what? I said, after church, I'm going to drop them off to the charity shop. I just said, you know what, this Bible, I'm going to give, hopefully somebody can reuse them. And I went to the charity shop. I couldn't get the strength to go in. She's like, what, can you drop them off? I said, no, I'll do it. She said, okay, leave them to me. I'll take them and I'll drop them off to the charity shop for you. So I thought that was it, the end of the Bible. I gave them to her. I thought she'll drop it off to somebody. And funny enough, the Lord worked in such a mysterious way that about 4 months later on, this particular sister, she got up in church and she testified about what I wrote in the Bible. And at this time, I was a member by then. And that's when he came back to me and said, oh my God, I wrote that down such a long time ago. I forgot about it totally. And that was just God's way to bring it home to me, to let me know that that declaration that I took out with him, it's serious and the importance of it. And for the church to even hear that, because I wrote down that I wanted to be a member of that particular church. And that's where God had just blessed me for her to read it in front of the church for them to see it. I gave myself to the Lord September of 2021. And ever since, I've been on that journey with him. I've been a fully fledged member. I try to do my best in every way I can to support the church, to worship the way I can, to praise my God. All these things that happened throughout my life, I thought that was just me or good luck, and not knowing that was just God directing my path, to put people in my path, in my way, just for his goodness and his glory.
What does your current relationship with God look like?
My current relationship with God, I'm hungry for him. I love to worship. I love to praise God. I love to sing to him. I want to do more for him. So I constantly put myself in a position just whenever I can talk to others to say, come and know God. I want people to kind of draw themselves near to him. So for me, I'm constantly want to learn, want to get more of him. So I want to grow. I want to read his word more. I want to pray more. I want to fast more. So I'm still looking at myself as a work in progress.
What about your family? You talked about how it had affected them when you were away. So what role do they play in terms of your relationship with God now? Because you talked about a partner,
Yeah.
as well, children.
Yeah.
So what role? How is that going?
I get support from my family, and even back home, I have, as you mentioned, there's a lot of sisters that have been praying for me over the years. So from the minute I got locked up, even before that, people have been praying into my life, and I think God really used them in such a way to give me strength. So when I'm down, sometimes there's just the prayers that kept coming in, and I think that kind of give me strength when I'm weak. I come out now, and it's just a blessing of the members in my church who has helped me in such a way to kind of get me on my feet, to provide for me. To sometimes it could be cooking, it could be a bit of counseling, encouragement. So I get a lot of support from family and the church support and the church virgins.
Wayne, you mentioned Anika. We had Anika on the program last week, and she gave her testimony. I didn't realize what a profound thing, because I didn't realize the connection between you and Anika.
Yes.
And so for her to have had an impact on you and your relationship with God is profound.
Amen. Soon after she went in another hospital. So that's so like a lot of situations that's happened. Yeah. So she came out of the hospital, and as soon as she came out, well, she was in the hospital, and as soon as what happened to her, that's when what happened to me straight after. So I got locked up while she was in hospital, just after. Yeah, while she just come out of coma. She's in rehab. And that's when I went to prison. So after her situation, I heard what happened to her. I come to church because I don't know if I probably need to go back to that a little bit, because I went to church. She was going through what she was going through. I sat in the hospital and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I feel like there's just something like my world stopped.
You said that.
I walk into church now where it was life and death, where we were meant to announce if she's going to die or live.
Yeah.
And that's when I walked in and I got a feeling. But in every bad situation, sometimes you're still there. So whatever it takes you in, you'll find a way to take you out of it.
So you mentioned earlier, now with your walk, you're hungry for God, you're thirsty for God, you just want more of God. So I'm just asking now, in your relationship now, you're hungry for God, you're thirsty for God, but do you have any challenges in maintaining that relationship with Him?
I think my walk with Christ is so sincere. I know there's challenges at times where, no today is going to be the same. And Jesus never had it perfect walking in this world. So for me, I kind of know that there will be challenges. But when I trust God and I said, you know what He took me through, the amount of time I've denied Him, and for Him to still be there for me, I use that as an inspiration each day to say, if He got me out of where I was in, the low situation I was in, but to bless me to bring me this far, no matter what sort of hard day I have, if I turn to Him and trust Him, He'll see me through.
If you had to say to someone, one of our viewers perhaps, who's going through the same thing that you're telling us you went through, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
The God that created us, He loved us more than anything else. God is real. And there will be doubts at times to say that God is not real, but God is there with us. He loves us and He wants to save us. He wants to use us in ways that we do not imagine. And no matter what sort of situation you go in, He will use your mess and turn your mess into a message. And I would say to anyone who is watching this, involved in drugs, which I was involved in, I would advise you not to do it, because when you do that, you're touching the things of the enemy, because you just want to live the way that God have ordained us to live, and understand that when you're breaking God's will and God's law, then there's a consequence and a price to pay for it. So I would say to anyone who is out there is doing wrong, just try and live your life in the right path, in the way that God have blessed us and want us to live.
So much once again, Dwayne, for braving it to come in to tell us your story. I know it's sometimes really difficult to go back over what's happened, but when you can share it and help others, it's enormous. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Before we go, I want to let you know that next week we'll be again featuring another testimony, and we invite you to join us to hear how God can and will turn your life around if you would only believe and accept Him. If there are any viewers who've missed Anika's testimony last week, you can find her testimony on our YouTube channel, and we'll give the information at the end of the programme. And also, if there are any viewers out there who have had a dramatic testimony that they really would like to share with us, we'd like to hear from you. And again, please, you'll find our details at the end of the programme. We're waiting for your contact. You can reach us via the details you can see on the screen. Our website is www.cogseventhday.org.uk. Our email is thebridgetv@cogseventhday.org.uk, or phone us on 0208 688 6094.
And let me remind you that we will be here every Sunday, 8 to 8:30 p.m. on Faith World TV, Sky Channel 588, and Freeview 264.